Hello, Emperor Tiger Star here. This is going to be off the cuff. I'm not using a script or anything, so I'll probably awkwardly pause a few times, and you may hear me, I don't know, like my chair squeak or something every once in a while, because I'm not really gonna edit this. But um, as you may or may not know, on my main channel, I have been trying to work on a new history of North America every year, where I map out the human journey in North America from the first civilization to the present. And it was something that I started and advertised I was doing like almost 2 years ago. And so, 2 years. So I've basically taken a while. And basically, I wanted to find a way to talk about updates on the project, because I've done like maybe 2 or 3 times where like I've done like a live stream and kind of given a general update, but 2 or 3 times across 2 whole years just doesn't seem like a lot, and some people have been waiting very patiently. And I basically want to make sure that people can find out at what point I'm in the project and so on. Like, I want to give them something. And so I'm making this. So part of the reason why it's taken so long is I'm trying to focus on accurately representing Native American tribes as much as I can, and indigenous nations. It's not very easy because, unfortunately, a lot of the tribes that went extinct, sometimes the records aren't fully there. Sometimes you can only find summaries. I obviously do not have the resources to find, to travel to archives or talk to historians of like every tribe in North America or every civilization that roamed North America, right? Like, I'm only one person. So I've been trying to do the best I can to make like a general timeline of it, and I'm also working backwards because I think it's easier to edit back from modern borders than to just guess random borders when the map is blank at the very beginning, if that makes sense. For mapping out the reservation system in the United States, it's really easy because we all know, what happens to the reservations, what states those are in, and so on. It's a great reference point. And from those reservations, we can find the treaties, which indicate the territory that those tribes gave to the United States before they were moved to the reservation. So moving backwards helps me get a picture on what North America was like throughout American history, rather than me trying to guess and hope that I get it right. Because if I make a mistake and I want to fix some slides, I'd rather fix like 200 than 2,000, right? So working backwards just kind of made sense. And I had, as of the point of this video, I am in like 1696. So basically everything 1696 to 2022 I have done. I have been in the late 1600s for a while now, several months. And part of it is I honestly keep discovering more and more that I didn't know about before. And I have to correct the 300 slides. Well, not always 300. At least up to the American expansion, right? So at least like 100 to 150 slides where I'm having to fix like mistakes of like tribes I have missed, indigenous nations I have missed, wars I have missed. And so, if I see a mistake like that, it's not something that I need to save until the very end when I have everything done. I want to get it fixed now because I might forget about it. Or even if I write it down, I may forget that I wrote it down. So, there's just a lot there. because whenever you look at a typical historical atlas, or even a lot of, like, my past work or the work of other mappers, they simplify North America to basically just show most of what the colonial powers claimed. And so it's an unreliable way of checking my progress. And which means I basically would have to, basically what I sort of did was I just basically tried to make a massive timeline by looking up the history of as many tribes as I could find and amalgamate that into a timeline and work with it. But of course, I'm imperfect. Sometimes I'm going to forget some tribes, or maybe there will be a tribe that went extinct in the 1700s that isn't around anymore that I just didn't pick up on. And so, yeah, basically that is why it's taking so long. I've just been constantly fixing mistakes. And I'm going to talk about the mistakes that I fixed this week. So basically, like, today and a little bit of yesterday so far. Firstly, I've been trying to get more details of a timeline for the Mississippi culture. So for those who don't know, by the 1800s, the area south of the Ohio River, you basically had the so-called 5 civilized tribes: the Muskogee, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, and the Seminole, right? Before that, at one point, around like I want to say like the 1300s, 1400s, maybe a little bit earlier, that whole area south of the Ohio was a lot of like city-states and chiefdoms and confederacies. And at some point between that and when the Cherokee and the Muskogee and those other tribes take over those areas, because the Muskogee is a confederacy, so it's a lot of tribes joining together. The timeline I had in between the tons of groups and city-states and the Muskogee forming was pretty blank, and I realized that. So I've been trying to make a timeline to remedy that. And some people have been kind enough to give me some resources on the areas of modern-day Georgia and Florida that have been really helpful. So I've basically got that timeline relatively done, although I'm still trying to do a little bit more research in the Alabama and Mississippi areas. And specifically on the video, I have been editing Florida because I recently learned from those sources that basically there were more tribes than the Seminole in the Everglades area of Florida, like southern Florida. And apparently, when the British took Florida, Spain deported what was left of those tribes, or as much as they could, to Cuba, and the rest amalgamated into the Seminole, which basically meant that before the first half of the 18th century, the Seminole were only in the northern half of Florida, which is not what I had shown. I had still shown them occupying all of inland Florida. So I was basically fixing that to show those tribes that I missed. And it's not super clear at what point the Seminole began. If you ask the Seminole themselves, they said, "Oh, we've been in Florida for thousands of years." That's technically not true. We know that they formed under the identity of the Seminole in the early 1700s, but it's not 100% clear. So for now, I've just settled on the year 1700 they show up, because the tribes that were in northern Florida before the Seminoles showed up were in such small numbers. There's just very little record. So I just had to simplify that they show up in right on the 1700 dot. And I hate when I have to do that, but sometimes I have to. Then I also have been trying to make a timeline of Central American states because I hadn't really like thought about like how the Spanish took over Mexico, because you usually think, oh, they take the Aztecs and the Maya resist for a little bit and then they just slowly advance north. But it's a bit more methodical than that. You've got several wars, uprisings, and things of that nature. And the 1700s, there is basically Spain's way of expansion, like through missions and stuff like that. It was I've been trying to find like a better timeline to show that with a little more detail than just, oh, every 10 years move them up an inch or something. Uh, and trying to find like what tribes revolted and when. Specifically, I was able to edit the video and update Baja California, the long peninsula on the western side of Mexico. I had shown that like 2/3 of it was under Spanish control, and like 1700, I realized that was not so, and that they basically had their first coastal mission settlement in Baja California on like the eastern coast in like 1697, 1696, 1697, and it took until like the 1730s for them to even get like the lower third of Baja California effectively under their control. And so I had to basically look up the major missions there when they were founded and the tribes that were there and fix that. Because, if you look at a map like, oh, what did colonial North America look like in the 1700s? Many maps will just show like Baja California and parts of Southern California and Arizona as already Spanish, but that's just not true. So I actually finished that tonight. Yeah, so those are basically the most recent updates I've done. I know this is very stream of consciousness, not very well edited because it's just unedited audio and a background picture, but I felt like it was important to kind of give an update. I'll try to give more updates on this channel. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll be happy to see your thoughts. See ya.